Kia ora, I'm Madeline Newman. I'm the Executive Director of the AI Forum for Aotearoa New Zealand, and I'm here with an amazing panel of women innovators in artificial intelligence. The AI Forum brings together New Zealand's AI community, and we work together to harness the power of AI to enable a prosperous, inclusive and thriving future. This year we've been proud to support the Women in AI Awards for Australia and New Zealand. And the awards were open to female innovators in AI based in Australia and New Zealand, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you all here. Our community includes private and public organisations, academics and innovators, and we thank our members who were involved in making this year's awards possible. So the co-chair for the Women in AI Awards was Megan Tapsell, and judges included Dan Tawhenua Walker, Isaru Fernando and Michael Whitbrook. The advisory panel included Janet Macbull and Dr. Marcia McCauley. Now let me introduce our awesome panellists for this session. We have Yunsin Ko, Mala Najati, Carla Taboata, Rachel Kelly, and joining us shortly on Zoom will be Stephanie Zollman, who's a bit of a superhero. She's currently giving a lecture at Otago University. So let's kick off with just hearing a little bit about each of you. Yunsin, if you'd like to start, just how you got to where you are, what inspires you, and where to next.
Kia ora, my name is Yunsin Ko. So I'm an associate professor from the School of Computer Science at University of Auckland. Predominantly, I'm actually working in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And specifically, I broadly work in algorithms, trying to actually create state-of-the-art machine learning and AI technologies, and also enhancing the research in that particular area. So I work broadly in real-time data stream mining analysis, and I also work in transfer learning, continual learning, and also I do anomaly detection. Generally, I love to be able to work in that and apply my research into things like AI for social good, and also I'm a very big fan of open source AI as well. So I'm also the co-director of the Advanced Machine Learning and Data Analytics Research Lab at the school, and in this particular lab we work with a lot of research that strengthens AI research, and also try to actually apply it into environment and health application areas as well. So how did I get to where I am? So a little bit of history. So originally I'm from Malaysia. So I came here back in 2004. I did my PhD at Otago University, and from then I actually landed my first job at AUT. Worked here for 2 years, and then I worked at Auckland. I've been with Auckland University about 14 years now, so it's been a while. I've always been an advocate of maths and science. I've loved it since I was a kid. So going down the computer science route wasn't too much of a stretch for me. And from that point onwards, I just thought, wow, the amazing abilities and amazing technologies that we can actually do, and the important work that I see females, particularly in this particular area. So from that point onwards, it was kind of a pathway. It was a no-brainer for me to just sort of go down this route, and I think and invite more women in this particular area to do so as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Hey Marla, what about you?
Okay, hi, I'm Marla. So I'm working as a research fellow at the University of Auckland at CARES Lab. So if I want to tell you my story, is that I started programming when I was in high school. So I participated in the robotic competition, and honestly, at that time, I didn't know that it's gonna be a big part of the rest of my life to doing the programming. So then I choose to study software engineering, and also I just get used to say, oh, image processing seems so interesting to me. And after I was like, okay, let's do a master in AI, especially on the image processing. And after that, I learned more about that. And then, because that time I was in Iran, so then I decided to come to New Zealand to do a really good project on robotics That was like a dream for me in New Zealand. So I've done a PhD here, and the subject was so fascinating for me. Even when I apply here, it was something like, oh, that's a really cool subject that I really work on that. So I'm working on the orchard robots, actually designing the vision system for orchard robots. And during my PhD, I work on the kiwi fruit harvester, apple harvester, kiwi fruit flower pollinator. And we tested on different orchards in New Zealand. And after that, when I finished, I continue my work at CARES Lab at the University of Auckland. So then right now I'm working on multiple projects like the designing vision system for blueberry harvester, vineyard pruner, apple fruit latiner. And because in my field, usually the orchard condition, it's so hard to control. So I'm just thinking about having something like tomato monitoring system, also a project. So right now I'm growing tomatoes in the lab, and after that I'm doing some of the testing on that as well. And I think that's going to be my passion, is something like working on the orchard robots, because still that's a long way to having the robot in this field. And also beside of that, I'm doing the teaching and also supervising students. And that's so sad, but I should tell, in most of the project that I was working, I was the only girl who's working on the technical side, maybe one or something like two that was working. So one of my goals is something like just inspiring more women to come to this field. Yeah, so I'm doing some kind of the presentation, especially for the young girls and the high school girls. So today also at 6 I have some plans for them, just introducing some books, and after that how it's going to be the future for them, something like inspiring them. Yeah, that's all.
Wow, that's really, really amazing.
Thank you.
Carla, how about you?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. So happy to be here with you today. My name is Carla Taboada. I am the leader of data science at Auckland Transport. I'm really happy to work there. But I'm also the founder and director of Domitila Technologies. If you ask what is Domitila, why Domitila? This is honoring a Bolivian activist, because I'm originally from Bolivia. And she was a lady that worked so hard to improve the lives of Bolivian families in the mines. And she was therefore a real miner, and I'm a data miner. That's the connection. And both of us really care about social impact, improving the lives of other people. So I also was inspired what the meaning of Domitila name. Domitila name means sharing your fortune and love. Fortune, not in terms of money, but in terms of the blessing, good things that you have in your life. And if all of us can share the good things that we have in our life, especially with younger generations, I think all of us will have a better future together. So I founded Domitila with the main mission to give everyone the opportunity to learn and explore artificial intelligence, leveraging AI literacy, AI education, with the main objective to empower them to apply AI for social good. So in the last 4 years, I designed an AI curriculum for high school students. I designed different workshops that I run here in New Zealand for companies, for schools, but also across the world, in Finland, in Spain, in Bolivia. I was able to get partnership with Bolivian universities, so I designed it as well, a program, postgraduate program, 6 months for professionals. Everything from project-based. So my program, first month is really bombarding with all the fantastic applications, what is possible with AI, so they can spark the curiosity and identify, oh, I can solve this problem with AI. So that's my main message today, that even though I can be a technical person, but I don't build the models for myself. I build the models, I apply the technology to solve a real problem in the world, something that can help other people. A little bit about how everything started. I would like to talk that it started in my childhood for a professor in mathematics. I was so lucky. If you want to be inspired this weekend, you can watch a movie. If you remember in the 80s, Stand and Deliver. This was about a Bolivian professor, real professor, that by math professor at the time. He was the brother of a principal in my school. And even though that time he was working and living in the United States, he came to Bolivia twice a year and giving us mathematics classes. And there started my love to mathematics. Then I studied system engineering. engineering, went to Japan to continue my studies, doing a master, PhD, postdoctoral in artificial intelligence, machine learning, then moved into industry, and at the end, my main purpose is to apply science and technology for social good and give everyone the opportunity to do that as well.
Amazing. We're going to come back to the AI for social good in a minute. Rachel, would you like to let everybody know who you are?
So it's lovely to join all of you here today and everyone also that's watching. So I started in the science and tech sector around 20 years ago, and that was developing technology products that, to the point of social good, really resonated with me as well. So it started from the very beginning around developing new testing methodologies to help with drug-facilitated sexual assault victims get data to be able to help prosecute the perpetrator. So from a very young age, I was working with the New Zealand police, and I think the test actually ended up going to the FBI. So it's been a wonderful experience from a very early stage to be involved with creating new products and technologies that actually change the outcomes to victims or situations in which otherwise they wouldn't have had the type of evidence or information to prove that they had been in fact drugged before a sexual assault actually happened. So from me, at a very formative age, I started to produce technology that I felt was pivotal in finally demystifying some of the hard human problems that historically had been unsolved. And so from there, I spent about 9 years in California. So I worked at a high-tech manufacturing company there, worked across the USA, also Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Middle East and Africa. So developing new or working with scientists in labs like Stanford or Merck, other, for example, pharmaceutical labs as well, to develop new tests to analyse complex mixtures. So my background was originally in life science, things like genetics, chemistry, forensic toxicology. So that led into being a scientist in the lab as well, and then serving scientists across the world to try to build these tools and platforms that did actually solve these problems. And so coming back to New Zealand around 7 years ago, I started to embed quite voraciously into the New Zealand tech sector. So I was very fortunate to be elected onto the NZ Tech Association board, which really helped to stimulate the knowledge around technology and how it was so ubiquitous in solving these big problems. And so that was a wonderful experience all the way into working with lots of tech startups, including in the wearable space and health tech space, all the way to computational GPU acceleration. So worked at Nereid in Cambridge, which do a lot of great work in the fact of GPU computational acceleration, which is awesome. I learnt way more about kernel space and ones and zeros than I ever thought I would need to working for that company. And then ended up leading the product division for Gallagher, the security enterprise division. So, and then more recently, I've been elected or appointed on the Callaghan Innovation Board, and I'm now co-CEO of Tailored Technologies, which is one half of a business which is really an R&D company working to unlock AI to create better health outcomes and to actually become a health concierge for people who may have slipped through the health sector, the traditional model of care, in which we want to try to empower more people to take charge of their health, understand why they're hurting, because from a social good perspective and a global impact, hurt people hurt people. So the more we can alleviate and reduce pain and suffering, hopefully the more we can make change to the world in which people hurt people less because they're also in less pain. So that's my foray into AI and creating that augmented intelligence, and in a way we craft sort of a love story between an AI and its human companion or vice versa.
Wow, that's very cool. Hey, we're going to cross over to Stephanie now from Otago.
Morena, everyone. Thanks a lot for the invitation and thanks for having me online. So I'm just coming out of the lecture theatre and directly into the discussions. I'm very excited about this. I'm basically an associate professor here in Otago for computer science. And I'm coming more from the augmented reality and virtual reality field. This basically brought me into the field of machine learning and AI and computer vision, of course, is a big part of augmented reality and virtual reality. But for me, it was basically more coming from a computer graphics perspective and looking into novel ways how to capture the environment around users. So for me, an aspect that is really important is to bring the human back into all this kind of computation technology. In particular, because if we look into what AI is able to do nowadays, for me, I think one of the important aspects is to make sure that we as humans can still participate in the interaction. So the whole aspect around human-computer interaction, human AI interaction is something that is really of high importance to me. And I'm actually working in different aspects here. So one thing that I'm looking into is to use AI and machine learning for sports spectating. So in particular, using this for making AR spectating in a stadium more immersive, more interactive, how to bring people together, which is something which is really important also nowadays, where we have this kind of separation between people that are online, like me, and having other people sitting in rooms. This is the same for stadium experiences, where nowadays a lot of people are maybe not able to come into a live sports game. How can we connect people that are on site with people that are remotely located, and how can we actually use machine learning in terms of making this a smoother transition? So how can we bring people closer together? And this is something that is of high importance to me. And basically this whole aspect about getting into the field of AI, for me, this was really coming from this kind of graphics perspective, where you say, I've seen it like a lot of really amazing results can be achieved by using AI technology. So if you look into the way how we are rendering 3D models nowadays, this is so much different to what was happening in the past, just in terms of how much content is actually really captured or is just synthesized. So in the past, basically, when we wanted to render a 3D model, we had to go out and capture like a lot of photographs, make sure that we captured every aspect we want to display later on. And now with AI, this is not really needed any longer. So this basically, what brought me into the field of AI. And then looking into the different options that we have in terms of now bringing the 3D graphics closer together with the humans and integrating the people into the virtual environments. So that's basically what I'm working on. And also for me, it's really important to also just make sure that we make this kind of field more diverse, just because we really have to include more diverse people into the field of AI, because if we don't get their perspectives, it will be really hard to make a technology that is actually diverse and really considers all the different aspects of this technology.
Thanks, Stephanie. You really touched on some key points, and I think we're going to investigate a few of those a little bit further now. How do we think that maybe Yun Sing, if you'd like to take this one. How can we harness the power of cutting-edge emerging technologies for AI for good?
Yeah, this actually is very close to my heart, AI for good. So AI for good generally is actually tackling problems in things like education, healthcare, environment, etc. And how do we actually use AI to actually sort of help in these kinds of situations? In a lot of cases now, I think there are a lot of technologies out there that allows us to do things that are more quicker, optimizing it quicker. We do it in real time. We can actually do a lot of things that we couldn't do previously. So there's a lot of examples and niche examples as well. One thing that I saw recently was an example where they were actually looking at penguin population, and they were actually using satellite images to actually look at penguin population, and that's actually quite niche. Things like that everybody can actually get into in terms of when you're actually sort of doing stuff. If we're talking about cutting edge, we are trying to actually push the boundaries of algorithms now to actually help. An example, and from personal example, actually, one of the research that I'm actually doing is looking at water quality, and this is one particular project that my PhD student is actually working on. And specifically, it's actually looking at water quality in lakes. And a lot of these lakes we can't really get to really easily, and it revolves around people, environmental scientists, going out there and collecting samples. And if the lake is not very accessible, then it's actually harder to actually get these samples from lakes. The thing that my students actually working with, and this is working with Zara and also University of Waikato as well, and is that he's actually interested in looking at cyanobacteria or algae blooms, which is actually toxic for animals and humans as well. And typically, these kind of data is institute data where you actually go out, you collect it. But that's actually, it's on a regular basis, a monthly or bi-monthly kind of situation. So instead, he's thinking, oh, right, we can actually harness other data around it to actually help. We are actually looking at satellite imagery and hyperspectral data from satellite to actually merge it alongside these kind of data that we can get off once in a while. And when we take a look at that, why is this difficult? In this modern age, we typically, when we build AI technologies, we require a lot of what we call ground truth data. And if we think about it in terms of collecting these data, you get one reading per month. That's not a lot of data in a lifetime. So being able to actually generate or create all more of these algorithms and push these boundaries, we can actually be able to actually create algorithms or technologies that actually help you detect when things go wrong faster, quicker. And that's one example of how we actually push boundaries or enhance technologies in AI and also actually enhance technologies with it or solve problems quicker. There's other examples that we have where currently I'm actually working on monitoring wood smoke pollution, and this is in partnership with NIWA, and we're looking at how do we actually interpolate all these sensors, using all these low-cost sensors to actually look at the air quality around us, and that's a difficult task as well. So generally, I think there's a lot of avenues, and I think potentially there's a lot of potential as well that's not been yet tapped. So having that ability to actually merge current issues and also thinking about what fits, what else do we need, is actually very important. Yeah.
That's great. And I think tomorrow we're launching, the AI Forum's launching our AI for the Environment report. So there'll be much more on that tomorrow. Just give you a plug in there. Moving on, just thinking about AI and using it ethically and responsibly. Carla, you've got some really good opinions on this.
Yes, I think in this topic, and that's the work that we do as well with Domitila, is when we discuss with parents, teachers, families, companies, we always discuss that it's not a responsibility of one specific group or one specific person. It's a responsibility of everyone. Everyone has a role to play, starting with government, putting the regulations in place, following with companies, ensuring that we are using AI responsibly and for good, following with developers like myself that always activate our critical thinking and ensure that the projects that we're involved on are used for good, not harming people. And then for me, it's most important is the public, the general public, because all of us are using AI in our mobile phones. And we have to be very curious and proactive, understanding what is the technology that we are using, what the data we are generating, what kind of data they are collecting from us, from our children, and how this can impact our future. So everyone has a role to play, and we, especially the people that are in their area, should be very proactive. Bringing the awareness, the education, the foundation, especially to understand how AI works. And based on that, we can together put the pressure for the governments to put more regulations and so on and so on. But the pressure has to come from the general public for us to use AI for good. And use it responsibly and ethically. Yeah.
Thank you. Rachel, you gave some really good examples before of AI for good and some of the ethical uses of it. Have you got anything that you'd like to add?
The ethical element is so multifaceted. So depending on which school of thought you have around ethic principles, you've got from 5 to 12 ethic principles to try to accommodate for. And so the interesting part of the ethics principles, I'm not going to go over all of them, but they've got a variety of categories like fairness or sanctity, independence or individualism. There's a variety of different language sets, and they all have their opposing forces. So fairness, you've got injustice. And so the interesting part around ethics is that across all of the spectrum of ethical principles, you've got varying dials that individuals, cultures, lots of different people have different places where those dials are kind of put at. For example, if you're looking at autonomous vehicles and you think that the algorithm is such a way that if there is the choice between a baby or an infant and an elderly, that there might be a construct in there that says, if I'm going to kill or hurt one of them, which one would be best? Now, if we were faced as a normal human environment with that choice, I mean, in that moment, in that time, it would be so hard to choose and would obviously undergo a highly complex ethical consideration at that point. But for us, if we hit the older lady and obviously that's a mortality issue, then there's an element of, okay, yes, she's had a life, the infant has a life to come, that therefore the older lady might have less weighting of their life value. So for us, we don't talk about these things. It's like, okay, I made the best choice, and humans have it's an accident as a fallback. Whereas we start to look at machine learning and AI algorithms, and there's more computation behind it, there may be far more or lack of forgiveness around who is hit, unless there's clear explainability of the algorithms. And I think it's the explainability around social good and around black box versus white box algorithms. Black box being you don't know what decision making or weighting goes behind the decisions that the AI creates, versus white box algorithms where it's very clear and that you can explain that. I think when it comes to social good and it comes to developing AI, it's having this multifaceted approach around ethics. So having ethnographers, who are people who study and deliver commercial elements of ethics into some of these code developments, and fact check or telemetry type elements to the algorithms, as well as understanding cultural nuances and then explainability to what is actually being developed. So no matter what happens, you understand why an algorithm said or outputted something that impacts the humans around it, and there's a way to actually bring it to court or be able to have it to accountability, but you understand why it in fact, the outcome was such that it created that particular situation.
Mana, I think we were talking about that earlier, weren't we?
Yeah. I think one of the other points also we should mention that right now, based on the research, actually people, they couldn't trust to autonomous cars to using that. I think it's still a long way to people be confident to something like using the autonomous cars level 5, because it's a level 5. That means the AI is the one who is controlling the car. But maybe based on what you add, and that's correct, is something like we should have different theory of something like the philosophy of the AI, and after that, and the ethical AI, who is working based on any of them, and maybe we can have the options to the user to use any of them. And also they should know, and also the producer or the programmer should guarantee that, okay, this one, for example, is working based on this philosophy that you are thinking that is correct. Because more than that, there's something like more probability that they should consider in terms of the gender, for example, because based on the research, it seems that the women actually 47% they are more likely to have a severe injuries in an accident, and 17% more than men to also be killed in an accident, that they should consider that when they're gonna make the decision. And also more than that, I think the user also in those kind of the condition, they should have control on the system. I mean, in that case, people, they're gonna be more confident of using that. I know maybe it's gonna be have a contract in terms of, okay, it's not autonomous, but I think people, they're gonna be more relaxed in something like, okay, I'm the one who's gonna make the decision.
Yeah. Fair enough. Great. Just moving on a little bit, and I wanted to bring Stephanie in on this one. How do we ensure that our vulnerable populations are not disadvantaged and left behind with the advancing of AI into the future?
Yeah, I think it relates nicely back to the previous discussion. So I think like this whole idea of how to explain the algorithms to the wider public, I think is one thing. So we need to include these kind of populations also into the discussion so that they are basically part of knowing how things are working, but also basically influencing decision making and bringing them basically into the design of algorithms, but then also making sure that developers and researchers are actually aware of this. I think exactly connecting the communities, connecting the research communities with the wider public, and really having these kind of discussions is so important to just make sure that everyone is basically included, and that we don't just design the algorithms for the white male that's working perfectly fine. But then as soon as we try something out that is maybe not really working for certain groups that are not really reflected in the data set. So I think that's something that's really important there.
Carla, you've got, you do a lot of work on the environment and bringing people in. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think the best way is that we together ensure that everyone has the opportunity to learn and explore this area, and then they discover that they can solve a problem. Let me give you an example that I did with students in Bolivia, for example. For this data science program, they entered to the program because they wanted to learn mainly Python. They thought that it's a new programming language, will give you more opportunities in the job later. But what they did is really to solve a problem. One example is that one person was working for the council, in the GIS department, doing the visualization of COVID cases in the city. And he found himself, I didn't tell him do this or do that, he found by himself, Carla, when people get infected with COVID and they go to the hospital, we mainly have the address. And when we have to visualize, we need the geocodes, longitude and latitude, and we don't have that information. So in the map is just some points, kind of random points. But I discovered that I can apply machine learning to predict these geocodes, because we have a data set of 500,000 of addresses and geocodes. So he applied, and you can see the difference before and after. Just random points to really identify the areas when we have more infections. And in this case, he said, we don't have 100% accuracy specifically where is the house. We just want to know the area. So 90% accuracy is good enough for us to identify the areas. So his feedback is that I entered to learn Python, but is you really open, not me, but the program opened the opportunity to see how I can do with AI, and you give me the opportunity to contribute in this pandemic situation. One example with a professional, another with kids, with a workshop I did with Auckland Transport last year. It was a one-day workshop from 9 to 4, and the whole day they were mainly playing with image classification, human pose estimation, for them to know that, for them to be exposed to these technologies. And later in the afternoon, we have an activity, how we can make our impact in transportation. We did groups according how they go to school. I go by bus, by car, by walking. And for the kids that were going by a school bus, they were saying that I want to apply AI to build swearing machine detection, because in the bus we go usually with older students, senior students, and they swear a lot. Sometimes it's intimidating for younger students. The behavior is not so good. So I proposed to build a self-driving bus, not a car, but a bus, because I want that the bus driver become a teacher and take care of the younger students. So if we give the opportunity to everyone to play with these technologies, explore it, and then they will definitely identify what problem they can solve and how they can make the impact. And this doesn't matter the age, everyone can definitely contribute.
It's not also having projects or programs of work that are in these minority groups, but it's also taking a broader approach to the other type of projects in which you allocate a certain number of seats or spots of the data subject for minorities. So for example, we're making sure that the 230 people that we're studying globally for the Project Otto at Taylor Tech is that 10% of our seats are actually gifted to minority groups or Indigenous groups. So whether it be Inuit, Native American, Aborigine, Māori, Pacifica, because for the most part there's a whole cultural nuance around data collection. I know we spoke about the actual issue around health data and data sovereignty earlier today, And it's trying to understand if we're building technology or an AI to serve everyone, it has to love everyone equally. And how do we actually make sure that we build these minority seats and data subjects, slots into all of these larger programs that aren't necessarily just about, smaller or indigenous countries or cultures. So that's a given with any kind of project, and that is always an allocation to ensure you cover that broader spectrum of, for example, genetic diversity for in our case, as well as health and lifestyle practices and expectations that are related to those particular countries or cultures or genetic predispositions.
Great. When we're thinking about, going back to ethics a little bit, thinking about drawing the line between humans and machines, when can we hold the machine liable? Tough question.
Yeah. I think that's also part of what we had discussed earlier, where there's a man or a woman in the machine, so to speak, or anyone who doesn't identify with either of those, but there's a human in the machine. And I think there's terms in machine learning where it's human in, on, and beside the loop, where there's a loop of an algorithm that might happen by itself or through some type of involvement with a human decision making. So I think that there's got to be clear delineation around where the human sits, where are the checks and balances, what type of ethic principles are being used, are these things explainable, are they transparent in a way that majority of people can understand. So unlike our terms and conditions and most of software as a service or other types of product use where it might be 17 pages of legal jargon, why can't we have more top line, 10 bullet point, what does this actually mean to use this product, and what are the implications of saying yes when you say I agree, rather than trying to sift through and just not even look at the EULA, which is the user license agreement essentially. So I think starting to talk more about how do we actually be hyper communicative with how we're designing the systems, who's involved, who's on, in, or beside the loop of these autonomous decision makings, and ensuring we have these types of conversations and bring it right at the early stages of youth development, education, which I know you all spoken about at length, but I think that's where it really starts, with accountability and transparency.
On that topic, I would like to make a call to the organizations, because at this time everyone wants to use AI, it's a buzzword. However, it's so important that, and that's the work I'm leading at Auckland Transport as well, is that we determine the ethical principles, the framework, and how we can put that into practice. It's not just in paper, very beautiful theory, but how we can put into practice for us, for the technical teams, to ensure the explainability of the algorithms, the transparency, how we are using the users' data, if we are not using. That's very important to do. It's not just having the ethical principles in paper, but how we put into practice, how we embed that in the development of our models, and that's the companies should definitely work on that.
So going back to women then, so throughout so globally, only 22% of the people working in AI are currently women, of any persuasion at all. How do we? What are the implications for our technology of that? I
think one of the things is we have to understand that there are, especially with AI, there are implications as in when you build a system and it's built predominantly by a subpopulation, it means that it works for that particular subpopulation. With actually wanting to have something like AI for all, which is a term that's coming around at the moment, we need to actually be inclusive, and we need to actually have everybody to be involved within it. Specifically, if you build a system, and I could say there's a lot of examples out there that would say, wow, these technologies were great, but it didn't really work for females or women. There will be lots of examples out there previously. There were unconscious bias that actually went into the system itself, like data that's produced. And the algorithms itself is going to give you a model based on what's the data that's actually inserted into it. So trying to actually have that balance, the check and balances there, having more representation is going to help. It's not only from the model perspective, but on the other side, the usability perspective of it as well. So there's two facets of it. We need more of us to actually be representative and actually be able to actually say, well, this actually works for us or not. Yeah. We really do need more representation.
Well,
I can just add more examples maybe from the Invisible Woman book. It's terms of, for example, I think all of us, we experience that when we working in the office, we feel cold in the office, and usually we have a jacket, and because the default temperature is just set to the male's temperature body. So, I mean, that's one of the part that maybe it's not directly relevant to the AI, but there are a lot of those kind of examples. Or as we talk in terms of the drugs as well, it seems that most of the medicine are also drugs, they're tested on the male cells or animals, because for female, it seems that female cells or animals, they have hormones, so it's more unpredictable, so it's harder. And as example, it was in 2013 that FDA announced that women who are using the sleeping pill, which is Ambien, they should reduce the dosage, because it seems that the women's body, actually the metabolism of that is slower than men. That means if you take the pill at the night, the next morning that you're going to go to the work, and if you are driving, maybe you're going to have a car crash. And I think it's not a nice thing, honestly. And it's just the female is something like women is an example, but we have a lot of those kind of examples that we see. For example, maybe for the AI, in terms of the data, it's going to be something like, for example, the voice recognition is going to just work with the men's voice. That's going to be another example, a specific example. So I think definitely we need more, especially with the field, the robotics that I'm working. And it's not just about the data. We need something like in the part of the making the decision, as we talk, for example, for that autonomous car. Definitely we need, yeah.
Well, Carla, how do you think we can bring more women in? How do you think we can solve that? And minorities as well.
Yeah, I think being very proactive and talking to parents, starting with parents based on my experience, because I have 2 kids, and as you can imagine, I love technology, and I involve them in robotic class, programming class, beautiful opportunities, and I share with my friends or coworkers. And the usual answer that I receive from them is that, oh yes, that will be good for my boy, he will be very interested. I said, but you have a daughter as well. Oh no, she's too much, mainly into art, mainly dancing. So it's still, unfortunately, we have those stereotypes. There are things for girls, things for boys, and we are not giving the same opportunity to girls to explore it. Mm-hmm. So I think we should be more proactive in talking to parents. There's also a little bit with the confidence of women that it's difficult. So we need to break those barriers and involving targeting from early childhood, so we can later have more women in the field.
Machine learning and AI is a subset of computer science, really, or computer technologies, which as a category is really rampant with a very ratio biased attendance. And so even to your point around you'd be in meetings and you'd be the only female, for the last 20 years that has been a recurrent thing for me in the leadership actual level, where it's not even in the actual the doing, it's the leading and the strategic part in technology generally. And so the more we can get and demystify a journey that is the technology path, which is really the probably the biggest and most broad type of craft that you could upskill in, because it is so ubiquitous across so many industries. I think the more we get that, demystify that, make it more inclusive, and from an AI specific thing, really stress the importance of EQ. So it's not just about IQ, it's actually more the EQ and that soft layer between the AI and its human kind of engagement that is going to be key. And this is where ethics and ethnography and other roles that are supportive to machine learning, which isn't necessarily the code, but is supportive of the code and ensures that the code is doing what we've talked about, explainability, consideration of ethic principles, inclusive, that's going to be really important. And those new roles, I think, aren't necessarily landed on. They're still kind of in flight around what are those roles that support the actual coding elements and the script writing. And I think as we kind of move forward in this field, that type of area or those areas will become more clear around the pathways that women can actually enter this world and provide that, augmented intelligence, so to speak, while you create inorganic intelligence.
I think that's one of the things that we wanted to touch on as well, was how people, so women and others who perhaps haven't had a STEM background, might get into this kind of field, and because it's pretty exciting and it's the future of the world. How do you get in? How do you break in?
Yeah, I think, like I would say to my children or any child, is find something that you're brutally passionate about, or something that just emblazons you to fix. Because we have so many consumers in this world that are happy to consume technology, but not enough builders or crafters or creators. And so I guess at the end of the day, don't get into machine learning because it's something that looks interesting or healthy or for your future, but find a thing that just, it sinks your heart to know there's no current solution, and hold on to that, and then essentially follow that passion, that path, that thing that just emblazons you to try to find a solution. And then oftentimes technology is a really amazing tool as a piece in your toolkit to solve those problems, but it should come from passion and an alignment of purpose first.
You got something to, Cara, I'm sure you've got something to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. There is so much good things that we can do. Yeah.
Perfect. And Stephanie, I was going to bring you in on that topic as well. Just your thoughts on how to get more people involved.
Yeah, I think the aspects that were discussed before are quite important. Like this whole idea about starting early, taking away this kind of fear about technology, because I think what happens often is that people are moving into a certain direction. And this is actually starting quite early. Like I think it was Carla who was saying this, starting in early childhood already to just engage with technology. I don't mean watching YouTube, videos, but I actually mean having like the brain box and really getting kids started with this early to just take away this kind of fear, which I think happens at some stage where people say, okay, technology is not really something for me, but I think this just happens because people are just, they're not getting really in touch with this. And so I feel like, first, really, start kids early. I think like robotics is really great for getting, engaged in science and technology. And then also, I mean, like this whole aspect about being able to tell a computer what to do. Like, I mean, how amazing is this? Like, writing your own programs to make your life easier. I think we just need to make this more clear to people what kind of amazing skill this actually is. And then really, don't lose the context. So just, try to get them engaged and stay engaged, and don't peel them away with, let's say, computer science is so tricky. I think it's really something that should be like a skill for everyone. So like, programming and at least like a bit of basic programming, this is so helpful for everyone by just making, automation, making your life easier by writing like simple programs. I think this should be a skill that everyone should actually at least have a little bit.
Great. And what do we do? So thinking about children, then they're and involving them in all of this. There's got to be there are some risks associated with that. What do we? How do I, as a parent, protect my child who's now delving into this from some of the risks associated with unconscious bias and other things associated with AI?
What has been super profound in my family is actually sitting down with my children and getting them to read the EULAs, so the end-user license agreements. So they might be wanting to play balloons or Terraria or whatever it might be. And I don't know why, but it's so easy for them just to click accept, like tap it, let's just go. And there's no adequate pause around, okay, what is it actually asking you to do? What is it? What are you selling as a result of this free program? And so I had this exercise with I think he was 10 at the time, and I literally sat down with him. With Chrome, there's those free games that you can get. I think there's an add-on, and you can just play these games. And he learned from his friends that he could just click all through everything, and he suddenly gets it. And I actually said, no, wait, let's see what the EULA actually says. And I walked him through. It was quite a painful process, but I tried to be really, really calm and methodical here. And I made sure he understood what that actually meant when he was saying yes or accept. And so even just starting at that point where the next time he went to install a game, he was like, I'm not too sure I want to sell my information to these folks. I don't know who they are. I don't know where it's being stored. I don't know how, the significance of this being free. And something so simple, even not only just walking them through, but forcing the mandates of actually having these EULAs, forcing through regulation that there has to be a summary, like at the very top. Let's summarise your key points. What are you giving up? What are you selling? What's going on? So not only adults can start to see what am I doing by clicking accept, but we start to bring it to the children's space too.
Definitely.
We have to bring this conversation at home, at the schools as well. There is a specific work from the United Nations about the rights for children, the policy of AI for children, and I can share with you later. But the most important for me is the data security. As you just said, what the data rights, what data they are collecting from our children and how it can harm their future. So that is very important, and we need to raise the awareness of how they can use a good use of the technology and the data that they might be generating and who is collecting and for what purpose.
Great. Hey, listen, it's been a really exciting discussion, and thank you all so much for contributing. And Stephanie, thanks for joining us from Otago as well. It's been great, and congratulations on being finalist in the Australasian Women in AI Awards.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.